they had settled there, they had families there, they had businesses there, they had houses, and obviously a big clan, a tribe, which they were part of. So some of the Muslims, when they planned to migrate from Makkah, due to their businesses and their family and tribes, they found it very difficult to migrate on the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some stayed behind because of the kids, because of the wives and the family, etc. Upon that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed an ayah in part of Surah At-Tawbah. As part of 10, Allah says, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الْفَاسِقِينَ. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell them that if your parents, آباؤكم, and if your children, وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ, your brothers, وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ, your wives, وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ, your tribe, وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا, and this wealth which we have gathered, وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا, and the businesses that you fear loss in, وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا, and these like to homes of yours which you have built with your own hands, with your own earnings. Allah says, وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If all these, meaning your parents, your children, your wives, your household, your tribe, your businesses, these big mansions and cottages that you built, Allah says, if these are more dear to you, مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, so dear to you, more dear to you than Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ, and striving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ. Then wait for the command of Allah, meaning the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to descend upon you. وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الْفَاسِقِينَ. And indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give guidance to those who are the transgressors. Yani ke, yes, we have love for our parents, no doubt. We have love for our children. And yes, it is part of our deen to love your parents. It is part of our deen to love your children. Islam encourages all these things. And there's reward for loving your parents. There's reward for loving your children. There's reward for loving your wives. No doubt. But the love of Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam should outweigh all this. माँ बाप से मोहब्बत करना इस्लाम का हुक्म है, बच्चों से मोहब्बत करना इस्लाम का हुक्म है, बीवी का खामन से, खामन का बीवी से मोहब्बत करना इस्लाम का हुक्म है, लेकिन फरमाया इन सब से ऊपर जो मोहब्बत है वो अल्लाह की और उसके रसूल की है. So if a clearest example I could give is very simple. If at a time in life you see, for example, your wife says to you, तुझे थोड़ा देर इन कर लो, लेकिन अल्लाह फरमाता है ऐसे नहीं करना. Or if your parents say something which is against the Sharia, then you are not to act upon that. You are to ignore them, meaning their command which is against the Sharia, which is against the Quran or the Hadith. You will not be classed as disobedient because you are acting upon the Sharia. Likewise, if your children say something, if that contradicts the Quran or the Hadith, then you are not to fall because they are my kids. No. You have to stick to the Quran and the Sunnah. You have to stick to the teachings. Let me give you a few examples of how important it is for us to love Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First of all, the Hadith in Bukhari Sharif, Azaka Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. That one cannot be a true believer. Yes, they are a believer, but their iman will not be at that maqam of completion until I, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is more dear to him than his parents, than his children, and the rest of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rest of mankind. So on top of all, as I mentioned before, it is the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he once said to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Ya Rasulullah alayhi salam, you are the most dear to me, but myself, my Jaan is more dear to me than you. या रसूल मुझे आपसे बड़ा प्यार है, आप मुझे बड़े महबूब हैं, लेकिन मेरी जान जो है ना, I care more about myself, ज़्यादा प्यारी है. Now upon that, there's few narrations. One is that Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Umar, one cannot be a true believer until I am more dear to him, even than himself. एक तो ये है, and एक वफी रिवायत in one narration is that Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam got hold of Hazrat Umar, and Aka Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him a hook. So Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam transfers that love of his into the heart of Hazrat Umar. As says, Umar, tell me now, how do you feel now? He says, Ya Rasulullah alayhi salam, now you are the more dearest to me, more than myself. Hazrat Habiba radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was Ummul Mu'mineen, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was the wife of Hazrat Sufyan radiallahu ta'ala anha. Hazrat Umir Muawiyah ki behan thi hai. So Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously they had migrated to Medina. So Hazrat Sufyan, before converting to Islam, pehle ye Islam mein nahi the. So before he converted to Islam, he visited his daughter, Hazrat Subhanallah. एक कुछ गल्ला तो भी याद रखिया कर. Hazrat Habiba, what's the name? Hazrat Habiba. She was one of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So her father visits her in Medina from Makkah. Now Hazrat Sufyan, keep in mind, at that time he's not a Muslim. So when he visits his daughter, Hazrat Habiba radiallahu ta'ala anha, so there was a bed, या खाटी जिसे कहते हैं, या बिस्तरा था एक, on which Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to rest on. So her father, now he's traveled all the way from Makkah. Janabi Sufyan, all the way from Makkah to Medina with his daughter, and he wants to sit down to take some rest. And the place where he was about to sit, that was the place where Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that was exclusive just for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam would rest. The daughter says to the father now, Abbaji, you are still impure. This place is for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You cannot sit here. This is the law of Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Kaba abhi aap kufr ki halat mein, you are still in the state of disbelief. And this place where you want to sit on, पकीज़गी भी जिनके ऊपर नाज करे, पकीज़गी को तहारत मिली है हुजूर से मिलके, कहते इस जगह पे आपने नहीं बैठना. हज़रत सैयदना सिद्दीक़ अकबर रज़ियल्लाहु ताला अन्हु, in the battle of Uhud, एक तो बदर का भी वाक़या है, in the battle of Uhud, his son, he comes out and says, who is it? Is there anyone from the side of the Muslims who will come and battle me, compete in me, in being a warrior, fight me? I am here from the side of the non-Muslims. That this is the son of Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. No one else comes out to accept this challenge other than the father, Siddiq Akbar himself, on behalf of the Muslims, comes out to fight. The reply Hazrat Siddiq Akbar gives to him, says, oh son. The reply Hazrat Siddiq Akbar gives to him, says, oh son, if you had come under my sword, I would have finished you because you were the enemy of Rasulullah. I would have spared you because you were my son. You spared me because you thought I'm your father. But if you had come under my sword, I would have finished you. Why? Love of Allah and the Prophet. And आखिरी में आपको बात अर्ज कर देता हूँ. There was this Sahabiya, again in the battle of Uhud. Someone tells her that your father, he's been martyred in the battle of Uhud. She says, I don't care. Because tell me about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, a rumor had gone around that Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been martyred. ये भी एक अफवाह फैली थी, हुजूर को शहीद कर दिया गया. And there was panic in the whole of Medina. Some of the Sahaba Kiram, when they heard this, that Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam had martyred, ulama ne likha hai, they said, there's nothing left now, let's just go back, leave the battlefield. So in that state of panic, someone tells her, the Sahabiya, Khatun, that your father has been martyred. She says, don't tell me about my father, tell me how is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she is running towards the battle of Uhud, the plain of Uhud, the mountain of Uhud. And then someone tells her, your son's been martyred as well. She goes, don't tell me about my son, tell me about Rasulullah. She is still marching towards the mountain of Uhud. someone tells her your husband's been martyred as well, तेरा बाप भी चला गया, तेरा खामन भी चला गया, तेरा बेटा भी चला गया है, वह कहते मुझे ये ना बताओ कौन गया, ये बताओ हुजूर जिंदा है के लिए। And then when she sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, फिर वो कहती या रसूलल्लाह हूं तानू वे के गम किसे याद रहे देख के सूरत पे, चैन पाएंगे तड़पते हुए दिल महशर में, गम किसे याद रहे देख के सूरत पे। So this is the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now Allah mentions وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا. As a lesson for us, we are busy 24/7, माल 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 माल, पर एक आमिना के लाल भी है। अल्लाह माल कमाए, yes, work, earn halal, may Allah place barakah in everyone's provision and risk, sustenance. Lekin again, if that wealth is taken you away from the deen, then that wealth is fitna for you. That mal is fitna for you. Anything that takes you away from the deen, that is fitna for you. Fitna meaning that's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has put you in that position where you have neglected the command of Allah and you have gone on the आसान, मैं हमेशा आसान मिसाल दिया कर रहा हूँ, बिल्कुल आसान। For example, our brothers who do taxis, बुरा नहीं मना, I'm just trying to explain it, बुरा मनाने वाली बात नहीं है। Brothers who do taxis, you're on the road, let's say some people are on the road 24/7, majority, most of the time. They're not spending 12 hours, they're spending almost 20 odd hours just on the road. हमारे साथी वो कहते ट्रैफिक रेड होती है, ऐसी 2 मिनट खिला लेते हैं। ये हाल होता है बाज़ बंदों का, यानी कि काम इतना करना है, बस काम 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 काम। So there's a person who's on the road most of the day, ना नमाज पढ़ी, ना कोई कुरान पढ़ा, ना कोई गल, ना कोई बात। अब ये माल, yes, he's earning halal, लेकिन ये उसके लिए फितना बन गया। He's on the road 24/7, but he has not spared out time, those 10 minutes just to park his car and offer few sujood at the masjid. Now that mal is fitna, it is taken away from Allah. इस आयत का ये मतलब है, ये मतलब इस आयत का। So we can see that where we stand, what is more dear to us, our mal or the deen? The deen doesn't stop us from earning halal. The deen does not stop you from working 24/7. No. What the deen says is, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, once you've completed your salah, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, get into your car again. That's what the deen says. Go back to work again. فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. जब रेस्टोरेंट चुकी चले गए, ब्लैक बुक ओथो चुकी चले गए, मैनचेस्टर, ये कुरान कह रहा है। फैल जाओ जमीन के अंदर, वब्तगू मिन फज़लिल्लाह, and earn and find the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. कुरान तो हमें ये कहता है। Islam does not say stop working. Islam does not say stay in the masjid 24/7. No, काम करें आप। ये ना समझो कि सारे ऐसे हम मेरी जगह देना आ जाना, साड़ा काम सब तो ज़्यादा औखा है। जी हाँ। सुभान अल्लाह। तो इस आयत का मतलब ये है कि कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि हम दूसरे मामलात के पीछे लग के दीन को पीछे छोड़ दें। ये मतलब इस आयत का, जो मैंने एक मिसाल दी है। I'm sure that was enough for us to understand what the context of this whole ayah is. Allah पाक हम सबको मदद करे। Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin ma'adil wujudi wal karami wa alihi wa ashabihi wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma rabbana anta as-salam wa as-salam tabarak al jalali wal ikram. Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. Allah पाक हमारी दुआएं पे बारे में कबूल मंजूर फरमा। जो बीमार हैं अल्लाह पाक उनको शिफा अता फरमा। भाई शेख साहब के अल्लाह पाक उनको सेहत अता फरमा। जिन साथियों ने आज मस्जिद के साथ ताउन किया, यूनिट्स लिखवाए हैं, अल्लाह पाक उनके रिज़्क़ में खैर बरकत नाज़िल फरमा। जो इरादा रखते हैं अल्लाह पाक उनको इस इरादे में कामयाबी अता फरमा, इस्तिक़ामत अता फरमा। तमाम के रिज़्क़ के ज़रिए अल्लाह पाक खैर बरकत फरमा। सल्लल्लाहु तआला अला हबीबि मुहम्मद व आलिहि व अस्हाबिहि अजमईन। रहमतिक या अरहमर राहिमीन।